Okay, so I'm going to start by priming. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I am going to be doing a first impressions review on this foundation from Benefit. This one is the Hello Happy, I always get the two confused. Hello Happy foundation. I am in shade 5, and if you guys are interested in hearing what I have to say about this foundation, definitely keep on watching. This is what it looks like after 9 hours of wear. Alright, let's go. Okay, so a little bit about me. So I'm Ken, hello. I'm 28 years old, male obviously. I've got textural issues being that I'm male, large pores, fine lines, all that sort of stuff is on my face. I do have some acne marks that are still present, like some redness from it, some brown ones from ones that are just recently healing, which brings me to the next bit, coverage. What do I look for in a foundation? I look for medium coverage foundations at the very least. Medium to full is usually what I prefer, and in terms of finishes I prefer a satin finish, so in between a matte and a dewy foundation, just, you know, the nice in between. I have a slightly oily T-zone, I should have said that earlier. I recently went to a Benefit event and I was gifted this foundation. Now I have the shade number 5. I actually got a colour match there, so I couldn't really tell while I was over there, but I just trusted the lady that was trying to help me out with the colour match, so hopefully this is it. So it says here soft blur foundation, so they were really emphasizing that this is really good for blurring imperfections on the skin, so I'm really excited because I do have large pores, especially here. So I'm on the Benefit Australia website, and from what I can see they have 12 shades, and when I did look at the shades at the display they had, they did run quite warm from what I could tell, and they do have some deep shades. I don't know if this is the complete shade range. Maybe in America they might have a larger range, not sure. But I would say they have pretty much all the lighter skins and medium skin tone people covered. I think definitely they need to build on the darker shades though. Now this foundation is going to retail for 49 Australian dollars. I'm not sure if that's just an introductory price. So it says lightweight foundation evens out skin tone and blurs imperfections with soft focus, optical blurring spheres with a natural matte finish and light to medium coverage. It looks like skin and feels like nothing at all. Okay, so those are what they're promising, and like I said, I do prefer medium coverage foundations, and I do prefer foundation that's more of a satin, but we'll see how this goes and how it performs on my skin. Now when I attended the event, the lady that was helping me with my colour match suggested that I use a beauty sponge because that's what they recommend, but I'm more than welcome to use a brush. So we'll see how that looks and how much of a difference it's actually going to make. I would say I have very even texture pretty much all over my face, so I think it's going to be a fair test. I'm just going to incorporate it into my normal makeup routine, that way I can see whether or not it does make a difference. So yeah, we're going to start off first with a primer. So I'm going to be using the Benefit Professional Primer. I'm just going to make sure I have an even amount on both sides of my face. Alright, I also do colour correction, so I'm just going to be grabbing this one from LA Girl Pro. Just going to be grabbing some of my RCMA No Colour Powder to set that. Okay, so it's going to be really interesting to see how well it's going to cover this, because this is like my main problematic area. Like when I do foundation, I just don't like seeing it at all. So even with colour correction, sometimes if the foundation doesn't have enough coverage. Anyway, we're gonna start. So it looks like we have to shake this, so I'm just gonna shake it. And you can hear like there's a little ball in there, like a little metallic ball to help make sure the products mix together. This honestly reminds me of the Chanel Vitalumiere or Vitalumiere, or however you like to say it, from way back. I don't even think they still do that foundation. Okay, so I don't know if mine is just a dud, but the stopper doesn't seem to be working that well. Anyway, we're going to continue. So I'm just going to apply, I'd say the normal amount of foundation I would on my face. Okay, so I don't know how many pea sizes this would be, probably 1 pea size, and I focus a lot of the foundation here because that's where most of the coverage is needed. So I'm just going to be grabbing a beauty sponge. This one is a wet one, so I'm just going to bounce this and see how far this goes. In terms of colour match, that's actually pretty spot on. So if you guys are familiar with MAC shades, I use NC30. Okay, so that's one layer of the foundation on my skin, and I'd have to say it is quite light in terms of coverage. I can still see the red colour corrector still peeking through, but I think overall the complexion seems to be fairly even. I'm starting to see a little bit of that blurring effect, but again, remember I'm wearing a silicone-based primer as well. Okay, now we're going to move on to a buffing brush. This one is from Models Preferred, it's so cute. And I'm just going to try and use the same amount of product. I can't identify the smell of this foundation, but it's not overly strong or overly overpowering. So I'm just going to use the brush and I'm going to first stipple. Okay, so looking on this side, I'm actually pretty impressed. It looks like it's built up more of that coverage. That being said, I think I did apply a little bit more foundation on this side compared to this side, but that's like one thin layer. And now I'm going to apply a second layer, but this time I'm going to do it how I normally do it, like full on Instagram, like amount of product, because I do wear quite a lot of foundation. Alright, 2 layers of that foundation compared to this side looks pretty much the same, like the amount of coverage. Okay, so now I'm going to apply again the same amount of product roughly on this side, and let's see what happens. Okay, so looking at it now, and this side has sort of dried out. This one's still a little bit wet, but I'm not gonna lie, I actually prefer the coverage that I get with the brush, like 2 layers. It actually looks pretty good. With the sponge side, I think some parts definitely do need a little bit more foundation, like maybe around here, the 5 o'clock shadow, maybe a bit on the forehead, like the sides, but in terms of like the mid part of the cheek, I think that's pretty good. Yeah, I think this product actually does buff out pretty well with a buffing brush, like sponge. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit more just to get the amount of coverage that I'm happy with on this side. Okay, so that is 2 layers of the foundation on this side and 2.5 on this side, and I have to say I still prefer the coverage of this one. I think there's a tiny bit more coverage compared to this, even though I've applied half more foundation on this side. In terms of how flawless the skin actually looks, I'm not going to lie, I actually prefer the stippling brush, which is very rare. I almost always prefer a sponge. Now in terms of color oxidation, I feel like this has gone a tiny bit darker, so maybe half a shade darker, but I don't mind it, to be honest. Yeah, so I'm just going to do the rest of my makeup and I will be right back. Hey guys, so it is now 8:53, so almost 9 o'clock in the evening. So I've roughly finished putting the foundation on around 3 o'clock, so it's now the 6-hour mark roughly, and I have done some vigorous cleaning around the house, some scrubbing, so I was a bit sweaty, to be honest, and I had the heater on and it's still quite cold, as you guys can tell. Anyway, so that's what I've been doing. I did get a little bit sweaty. I'm still in love with it, like the pores still look amazing. Overall, I think I look a little bit shiny up here, sides of the cheeks. Okay, so what does the foundation look like overall? I think I am pretty good, actually. I'm actually surprised that I'm not oily. Obviously around the nose, the T-zone, like I expect this part here to be a little bit oily, and I can see the foundation is starting to separate, but it's not bad. It's like I feel like if I just lightly dab a tissue there and then maybe put some powder on, it's going to be fine, but I'm not going to do that because I rarely touch up with powder, to be honest. Take a tissue and I'm just going to blot some of the excess oils off, so as you guys can see, some of the foundation has come off. But honestly, I think I look pretty presentable still. I don't think I really need to apply powder to make this last any longer. I am a little bit shinier on the forehead. That's because I don't really put too much powder on the forehead, but otherwise I think it's holding up pretty well. don't think any of the coverage is fading anywhere, both on the foundation brush side or the sponge side. I will point out that I feel that I can see my pores more on this side compared to this side. I don't think you guys can see it on camera, but that's just my opinion. I don't know, I feel that with this particular foundation, buffing it in actually helps fill in the pores more, even though you've got a silicone primer, and it just glides on better. I don't know. That's just what I'm seeing so far. So I'm going to leave the foundation on for maybe another 2 or 3 hours, so you know, like a whole working day, and I'll let you guys know what I think about it. But I think this foundation's still going to look decent even then. Okay, hello. It is now 11:17 in the evening, so 8 hours. I'm about ready to take this all off just because it's getting pretty late. I've just pretty much sat on the lounge just watching some TV. I'm currently watching Suits, if you guys like that show. I'm actually in love with that show, it's really good. Anyway, off topic, I have sat in front of a heater pretty much the entire time, and I think the makeup has started to really, I think the oils in my face have started to really seep through. I can see the foundation on like here where my mouth moves a lot more has already started to fade, and I've also noticed smile lines starting to form. I rarely have smile line issues, but I'm thinking it's because it's got that matte finish, and like I said before, matte finish foundations tend to have that effect on me where they kind of like sit on the fine lines and whatnot, but it's not noticeable. It's only really when I bring the mirror up that close. But overall, I think this looks pretty good. I definitely feel that I'm a lot shinier though. Alright, so I'm just gonna wrap this up because I really just want to take this off and go to bed. So what do I think about this foundation? I think it's a pretty good foundation. I'm pretty impressed with the finish. Again, I would have to go with the brush side. I think it just looks much better. In terms of packaging, I actually like the packaging. I think it's really cute. I also like that little smiley thing. I'm just not a fan of it like leaking a tiny bit like once you pull that off. I'm not sure if it's just my packaging or if this is just a common reoccurrence. If you guys have this foundation, let me know down in the comment box down below. In terms of the finish, I'd have to say I do agree with the light to medium coverage. Is this a foundation for me? I would say this is a good foundation for me if I'm just, you know, wearing a light foundation for every day. I think it works really well. But in terms of a long wearing foundation that has the amount of coverage that I require for, you know, the stuff that I do, I would say not the foundation for that, but then again, you know, I've got different foundations for different purposes. So I think if you are the type of person that likes a light medium coverage foundation for everyday wear, this is definitely it. If you guys are like me and you want like the full-on coverage pretty much all day, probably not the option for you, otherwise you'll be using so much product. But if you do have this in your collection and you are thinking about using it for all day wear, I think it's actually okay. I think it's held up pretty well. Okay, in terms of repurchasing this product, would I repurchase this? I would say yes. This I think is a really good everyday foundation. It doesn't have an overly strong scent. It's got SPF, has pretty decent coverage, and it is quite buildable. So that's pretty much it from me, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to thumbs up the video if you guys enjoyed. Tell me down in the comment box down below if you guys are thinking of purchasing this foundation, or have you purchased the foundation. What are your thoughts and opinions? I'd love to hear from you guys, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.